Welcome to the Business Trendsetter Podcast, where we talk about trends and how to use them to grow your business. My name is Manny Turan.
And I'm Adam Hartnell.
We are Spark Partners. We're here every week to discuss all things trends, things to do with business. And, you know, we're as being trendsetters, we obviously are looking at what's happening in the world. One of the biggest things happening right now that everybody's talking about, besides the election, of course, it has to do with AI. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these things have become center stage as one of the most prolific waves of activity in business and in your own personal life. So I'd like to break it down today, Adam, and look at some ways that, what are the tools available out there and what can people do with AI to advance their own careers and their own businesses at that stage?
Yeah, I've been talking about AI a lot for the last year, and with all my coaching clients, and when I go off to do Vistage talks. And one of the things that I didn't perceive early, but I've started to perceive much better recently, is that when I would bring it up, a lot of people, when I say artificial intelligence, they kind of glaze over because they think that it's a very technical field. And it's almost as if you wound the clock back to the 1970s and early 80s, and we had data centers. And data centers were populated by electrical engineers and computer science majors that wrote in Fortran code or COBOL in those days, right? Wrote code and wrote programs and all that. And what happened, we believed that if you were going to be in the technology world, you had to go have one of those degrees. But as we went into the 80s and moved forward, what we started realizing, we created these information technology centers, we call them data centers, was that it was about information, how you managed information. And if you looked at who led IT departments, in the very early days, they were the people that had run the data centers, right? The people who kept the wheels moving. But it didn't take long until what happened was there was a big change in that when we started to think of information as a big part of our business, the skills you wanted in information technology were business skills. They were, good decision-making skills to understand what is the problem I'm trying to solve? How am I going to help my organization operate better? How am I going to better connect with customers, all that kind of thing that we wanted to do? And often that didn't require that you have a lot of technology background. That the technology was being supplied by technology companies. It was the Microsofts, the Apples, the Oracles of the world were producing technology. And the people in IT departments, their reality was to sit down and listen to these suppliers and to listen to their constituents, who were the customers on the outside communicating, who were the employees that were trying to get work done, and who were the suppliers trying to service the company, right? And so what were the needs of those people, and how would these different types of technology help me out? How much does it cost? How reliable is it? How much training would it require from my users? Those were the questions that got asked a lot of the time. They were not questions of bits and bytes and programming and how I did code. And to this day, I think if you look around, you now can get degrees in information technology. It doesn't require a lot of math. I remember when I was an undergraduate, and I started my undergraduate in '75 and finished in '79, and when the computer science required more math than electrical engineering did at that time to get an undergraduate degree. Well, they changed that dramatically, right? Computer science became something that was much more about solving problems. And now, sure, there were PhDs and there was people working with machine language, and they were really out there on the edge of the technology. So I want to kind of bring that home today and start trying to say, look, when I say AI, or Manny, when you say AI, or when any of us say artificial intelligence, we're not inherently talking about technology. We're really talking about using a new wave of technology in your business, right?
Yeah,
so that it can be more effective.
Yeah, I think there's a general sentiment. It's lessening more and more of a certain fear or of the unknown, especially with some of the more senior business leaders. They don't want to use it. They don't want to hear it. And so the younger folks are adopting it much more quickly, but the older folks that I've talked to tend to push it away. They don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. They think it's a fad. They don't understand how prevalent it is, and that most of their employees are probably already using ChatGPT and other ones. And so I know that you've compiled a list of some interesting things for us to look at regarding these elements within AI that people can really do to improve their business and their skills?
Well, yeah. So what I did is I started doing some queries around top skills for artificial intelligence, right? And this is going to get to the companies like ChatGPT that are supplying the tools, but it's also going to be in the user community because you hear a lot that there's a demand. Businesses want to have people that can implement artificial intelligence. And so in the middle of this, you have recruiters that are saying, what are the skill sets that I need people to have to go into these companies and be more helpful? And the top of the list is not programming. At the end of this podcast, we'll get to some of the more technical skills that could be helpful in the job. But the top of the list wasn't that. It was more things like, let's just start. We're going to have a handful of these here. One of them is data literacy. So data literacy, what that means is recognizing if you've got good data. Remember the old garbage in, garbage out question, right? I mean, well, it's the same thing true in AI. If I go out and I try to do a small language model, medium language model, or a large language model, any of those, using any tool from Facebook Meta tool to any other tool out there, that's not going to be any better than the data you feed it. So are you feeding it good data? And that doesn't require a PhD in technology, right? To recognize, am I feeding it data out of for example, out of my company that truly only reflects my customers? If it is, I might be helpful in terms of working with my current customers, but I'm ignoring all my non-customers, right? So that's data literacy. It's also saying, am I using data, if it's external data, is this fact check data? Is it quality data? Have they pulled out any, are their sources good? That's what I'm getting towards. So knowing how to ask questions about where did this data come from? How do you know that it's accurate? How do you know it's good? And we do this all the time watching television where people talk about polls. And they'll say, well, this political poll or that question poll. They'll say what the answer is. And they'll say, well, how did you get there on your poll? Well, we surveyed this many people. This is, the results, who they were. This is the base. This is the technology we use to get the data, et cetera, et cetera. That's data literacy. And again, that's something that people can apply in their business, and you can learn how to do it, or you probably already have some of those skills. You just haven't thought about how to apply them in AI yet. Yep, another one is really problem-solving and critical thinking. If you go back to the old idea of a liberal arts education, which so many people eschew these days, they say that it's a kind of a has-been, but really, a liberal arts education was about critical thinking. The reason people took history was to become aware of what were the people doing at the time, what were they thinking at the time, and how did they make decisions, whether good or bad. And so the reason we taught history, hopefully, I wish we taught more of it, but it seems to be on a sliding scale these days, was because it was the ability to teach you critical thinking, right? Going one or two levels deep. Instead of saying, well, this was the day the Civil War started, it was, what was going on in the country? What were the events and why? Why did that politician act that way? Why did a politician, in Kansas behave very differently from a politician in Georgia? That's critical thinking. Well, that's what you need in AI, because you got to start saying, wait a minute, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to help my customers. What is it they're trying to do? And using critical thinking to start to think, what could I automate in my business? What is the next fetch that people want that I could say, okay, if I can make that happen automatically, then they would have it. It's like if they're making out a list of things to buy, if they put down a peanut butter, I might want to recommend jelly. Right? That's kind of the fetch element of it. Well, that's just critical thinking, right? And so that's the number two thing that came up on the list. Number one, data literacy. Number two was problem solving and critical thinking. It's something that, again, inherently is from a liberal arts degree, although a lot of us develop that skill over time.
All right. What do we got next? The third one there.
Well, data handling. How well are we doing handling our data? Are we keeping our data current, or are we using old data and using it 2 or 3 times? Right? So you want to make sure that the way we handle our data keeps it accurate and keeps it current and keeps it usable. And part of that is fact checking. So whenever we're working in AI, we start saying, okay, remember the scientific method? You would say, I have a hypothesis. Now I'm going to test the hypothesis. So I have a hypothesis that if I heat water, it will become steam. I heat the water, it becomes steam. Proved out my hypothesis. That's fact checking, right? Did I get the answer that I thought? So whenever you're creating an AI model and you started down this road, and let's say you know nothing about how to create a model, but you want one, you can hire somebody to do the model, right? That's one of the things about technology. There's always people who love technology who want to do the technology, and you can help them set up the problem. And if you set up the problem right, it's going to be very valuable. So you again take a look and say, what are the facts that we know? And now let's have the AI model take a look at our customer base. And the AI model comes back and says, perhaps we should do something different in terms of communicating with our customers. And so saying to ourselves, does that really fit with the facts as I know it? And so what we would do is we could go to the existing customers and ask, or we could go to our non-existing customers, the ones we want to get, and ask, and start saying, oh, does this check what the AI model said would be the right thing to do? So fact checking is another one of the big skills if you want to be successful in AI, is being able to know that your AI model isn't giving you, I'm trying to remember what they call it. They don't call them mistakes. They call them
anomalies.
Anyway, but just knowing that, hey, look, this isn't the right answer, and we got to be better at how we're.
Yeah, you spend any time on LinkedIn, and it seems like everybody and their mother is an AI expert. Type in AI expert on the search bar, and I'm sure the people in your domain that'll have that on their title. Whether they are or not, who knows? But people see it as a skill that's pretty important.
Well, my better half is Mary Lou, and Mary Lou, I've ever since I've known her, I guess 12, 14 years. Anyway, she was always an excellent Googler. I would tell her that. It was like when I wanted to know something, if I took out a search engine and I searched for something, she could get to the answer much quicker than I could. She could think up the key terms to use and order them in a way that she could get towards the answer way faster than I could. And that was true a decade ago, and it's actually still true today. Why? Well, because we both still use the Google tool, we still use search engines, but she started way ahead of me, and I've never caught up, right? And so that's the same thing we're trying to get at here is, how good are you at being able to figure out what the right terms are to search on, what the right way is to go about managing the data and managing the output. So communication skills become crucial. You have to be able to talk to the technology folks about what it is you're trying to do with AI. What is it you want the model to do? What do you want to accomplish, right? You want to make better decisions. So, for example, you could create an AI model that would take a look at insurance claims. And you say, well, what I want to do is just have, instead of a person looking at this, I want somebody to look at the patient record and take a look at what they've been diagnosed and then take a look at the drugs they take and say, do they match? Or are they getting, so it's the person Adam's come in here and Adam's been diagnosed with these ailments, and over here we've got the drugs, and then Adam has made a request for a new pharmaceutical. His doctors put in a request. So we want the machine to take a look at that and say, does that make sense? Or is he getting prescribed a cancer drug when his problem is he's got a bad heart? And then in that case, what's the likely problem here? Is it a misspelling? What could have gone wrong? This is what people do that look at claims. Well, I want to train my AI model so the AI model can do that for me so that it'll be able to, I don't have to have a person intervene. And hopefully I get to even better answers, right? That the AI model can do this analysis better than the human can. Well, now you got to tell somebody that. You got to communicate what it is the goal that you want to achieve, and you have to start saying, "This is what I want. This is what my inputs will be, and this is the process, the decision process, the way I see it, the machine learning process we call it technologically, right? How is the machine supposed to learn this?" But that's communication. That's thinking through the process of how you want to try to get what you want out of AI, and being able to talk to the people, your constituents who are going to use it, about why they would use it. So, well, we took this input, we built this model, and then we're going to get this output, and this is how the process will work. If people don't understand that process, then your AI is not going to be effective. It's not going to be usable. So being able to communicate becomes very important. So once again, the people who can create the model, who can feed the inputs, get you the outputs, those people are crucial to the process. But all these other things around it, getting the right data, handling the right data, making sure that it's all good, making sure it's up to date, making sure that your facts check out, and being able to talk about it or communicate what's going on, what you're doing with AI, are really crucial to the success. If you want to try to get it and use AI in an effective way.
Very true. I think, I've spent some time with people that are AI experts, and if you really get down to the core of it, like you just mentioned, they're really experts in understanding the data, and less experts about the software side. There's people there's software that writes software, right? There's lots of tools out there there's companies that will help you develop an AI tool for your own business. But at the same time, it's more crucial to have clean data and to ask the right questions so you get the right framework to give you the right answers.
Which leads to the next really important skill, which is continuous learning. We kind of get stuck in our learning sometimes. I know, especially as we get older, and I look around at a lot of people my age, and they already have the answer. They're walking around with the answer all the time in their head. They really quit learning. They quit paying attention. They quit thinking they can learn anything. Because they're like, hey, I've been through life, and now that I'm in the winter of my season, I think that I know everything. And that's death. That's death. I don't care who you are. You're on your way to death at that point. But it's particularly true if you're working around AI, because what's happening is the AI outputs will teach you something. They're very likely to show you surprising things about your customers, behavior, surprising things about your process, about problems in your process, deficiencies in the process, wrong outputs in the process, data that you've used for decision making that's questionable, right? So you're going to get an awful lot you're going to learn a lot. If you aren't in a continuous learning mode, this doesn't do you any good, because you've got to be light on your feet and able to adjust. And again, this gets back to behaviors and how people get stuck and that sort of a thing. But the people that are going to be good at continuous learning, that can help an organization move forward, are those who say, you know what, we learned this in the last month and we were surprised. Or it fed into what we believed. That's one option. Just what we thought would happen is what happened. But sometimes you're going to be like, we're a little bit surprised. And so now we realize we've got to improve our data. We've got to realize that maybe we've got to handle our data better. Or maybe we realize that we didn't understand our customers the way we thought we understood our customers. So now we can adjust our business process. Now, it's not, again, you aren't going to adjust the AI model. That's part of it. But the whole purpose here is so that you make your customers happy so you sell more stuff. That's what you should do. You sell more stuff and become a bit more efficient, right? So this continuous learning is really crucial. And it's not just continuously learning the technology. One of the things, there are technology people that have to focus on doing that. But we all don't do that. That, again, is one role.
Yeah, I think if you go out, if you're in a business, a very niche business, whatever, car sales, or maybe you do roofing or something, and you do a Google search for AI tools in your industry, and you don't find that tool, it's a great opportunity for you to create that tool and create an additional amount of income for your business. There's lots of experts. There's software people. There's data people all the way through that can lay that out. And I think that it's a bit of the Wild West right now, really. If you think about what's happening with AI, lots of tools exist, but you got to make sure that you use these processes to make sure it's giving you the right solution.
When I was last living full-time in Chicago, there was one house in my neighborhood or area community, I don't quite know how to define it. There was this one house that was clearly the biggest house, right? And I didn't know anything about it. Even though I lived in my house for 25 years, I didn't really, it was far enough away. I never met the people, didn't run into them by accident or anything like that. Didn't know much about it. And so one time I was playing golf, and I was looking at the house and I was talking to this fellow that I was playing golf with. And I said, I've always liked that house. I said, I'm pretty sure it's got an indoor pool, which in Chicago is a big deal, right? And he said, oh, yeah. I said, I know that guy. So that's his house. He's also got, it's like 8,000 square foot apartment in downtown Chicago. I'm like, wow. I said, how did he build a house? He said, yeah, I built it like 15, 20 years ago. The reason I'm telling that whole story was it turned out what that guy did was he sat around and he looked at car dealerships. And he started realizing that car dealers didn't have a good ability to understand parts inventory across all of the different dealerships. So if you were a Chevrolet dealer and you had your inventory, you didn't have a really good ability to recognize if another dealer in your town or close by might have a part. And so he created a piece of software just to do that, just to track inventory inside a dealer network. And then he went to dealers and said, wouldn't this be helpful? And he went to several dealers and they offered it to him at a very, very low price to get them hooked onto it. Then he got the network effect going and he became a very wealthy guy. So What did he do? He saw this opportunity where he said, look, there's data out there. The data could be very helpful for helping people run their business. If I create this software, this database, and help people do it, I can make a good dime out of it. And he did. He made quite a few good dimes out of it. That's what we're talking about in AI now. You look around and using continuous learning, what you see, you start saying, wait a minute, I'm seeing this decision-making process repeated again and again. Now, if I can automate that decision process then I can go back to my customers and say, wouldn't this help you run your business? So after you improve your business, you start to see how you could take that tool out and help other people in their business. Go back to your classic phrase, Manny, which is, do you have your road to $1 billion? That's one of the ways you do it.
Very true. Very true. Now we've got a couple more on the list.
Well, the biggest thing I'd say now is I think those are the skills. These are, by the way, the top skills. I don't want to just indicate people that are the soft skills. These are the top skills. But then after that, you can start getting into some more skills that would help you just be more effective, quicker to do things. Maybe you wouldn't have to have as much help on the technology side. One of them is API integration. That's application programming interface. They've been around forever. It's how we connect tools together. So, for example, if you've got a tool that your Salesforce is using to customize a solution for a customer, right? So that tool, you want to now have the AI interface to that. So you need an API that talks to that tool. Your tool might be built using Excel. So you're going to have to integrate AI into your Excel model. Or it might generate a proposal. You need to now integrate your ChatGPT AI into Word that produces the text proposal, right? So that's API integration, which may cause some people to just buzz over because they don't like that term. But it's not like it's something you got to go get a college degree in. I mean, it's integrating the tool into these applications, and all applications have application programming interfaces. They all do. Everybody, when they're built that way, they're built to talk to data sources. They're built to talk to output engines. That's what they're built for. So now you say, okay, I'm going to bring in my data source. Let's say you're you're trying to do something with data around food. Okay, well, the Grocery Manufacturers of America have a database of retail sales of food to grocers. They have an API. And you say, okay, I want to grab that API to get everything on frozen food. Now, go out, get that API, and I can now feed my model with the data that I pull from the Grocery Manufacturers of America. So there's all these data sources out there. People have all kinds of business data that you can acquire. Now what happens is you need an API to feed that into your model. Again, this is not high technology stuff. And so get familiar with it. Just look up APIs, learn a little bit more about them. Find out the most common ones, which are feeding your Microsoft products, your Salesforce products, Oracle database products. Look at those are the ones that are very, very common, and you're going to need to feed those. Other ones would be the data side. Where does most of the data come from that you would want to use in your business? And then get their information on their APIs. That's the next thing that you can go after. Again, you don't have to go now ask somebody technologically whether or not they can help you. You can start to do that yourself.
So, Adam, I was at a talk last night. I was actually giving a talk, and I got asked a question from a person, kind of a general question about how do I use innovation in my business to improve my business? And I thought about that, and I gave an answer that was really twofold. First of all, you can use innovations, or in this case, we're talking about AI or whatever, on your business to improve your value delivery, your efficiency, how your team works, all that. But then you can also create these things for your market, for your customers. And I think it's interesting to look at these AI tools is if there's not a tool that exists that can support what you're looking for, maybe that's a major clue for you to actually begin to develop that for your industry. That could be another blank space team opportunity. Yeah. So I just kind of want to put that out there because I think people think very unilaterally about innovation, about these new things out there, and they think about how it can support their business, but also maybe how it can be your business.
Good. So I think we're just going to wrap this up a little bit about the technology side. There are probably people out there that say, maybe I'd like to be a standalone AI consultant and I need to be able to do some implementation. Well, okay. We just talked about the programming interfaces that you need to get. You might want to get some language skills, and Python is probably the most popular programming skill in AI these days. So you could, there's a lot of ways you can get Python training. Everything from going to a high school to a junior college to online training programs to things you can do on your own. Another one's called R. There's another one that would come along that you could use. So if you wanted to do a little language training so you could do some of your own programming, that would be a good way to go. Just realize that you can grab these ChatGPT and other models and use them and experiment with them a lot before you need to make any alterations to them. So be good at experimenting and understanding how the models work before you start to decide to dive in and do some programming on your own. But if you think that would be helpful, I guess I just want to be clear. I wouldn't wait until I had that skill to get started. I wouldn't wait on the programming skills. I don't think that's that important to get started trying to say I'm going to be good at AI. Then the next one, you can always study math and statistics, all that kind of stuff. But, that just sounds so generic. It's much better to get to the problem and solve the real problem you want to have and look up those solutions. But natural language processing is getting to be much bigger. We want to be able to ask AI programs questions in ways that they understand them. I was always frustrated that I couldn't say to Siri on my phone something as simple as Siri, look up the phone number for Manny and dial it for me. To me, that was an obvious thing that Siri should be able to do inside of the iPhone. And of course, it never could. Well, that's natural language processing. That's understanding the question and being able to undertake steps with the question in order to get to something else. So natural language processing is where we're headed technologically with this, so that people can tell the models what they want to do, tell the models the inputs, tell them the outputs, and do it in a natural language way that doesn't require Python or another language. So the more you learn about natural language processing, the more effective it will be. But I hope this podcast, the intent of this podcast was to say, you don't need to be a technology expert to become an AI good person. I'm not going to necessarily say expert because it depends on how hard you want to work at it. But, AI is coming at us thick and fast. And, if you're young, you need to be good at it. Just like years ago, we had to be good at using iPhones. We had to be good at using our PCs and Excel and Word and PowerPoint. And we all had to learn how to do that years ago. And now the next one is this artificial intelligence. And don't be scared of it because a lot of it is not that technical and can be super high valuable.
Very well said, Adam. Very well said. With that, we'll close out today's podcast. And I hope you have good experiences searching out AI tools for your business and how you can use it in your business, and maybe if you don't find it, maybe how you can create a business out of that unmet need.
Great, man. One of these days, we're going to have an AI hackathon with some of our clients.
Yeah, that'd be fun. All right, Adam, take care of yourself.
Thank you.